Thank you all for coming, and great to see you. I'm David Gersten. I'm the Director of Arts, Letters, and Numbers, and I want to welcome you all to this really wonderful sharing of the works from The Earth of, our writing workshop taught by Ginger Tepner and Andrew Helton. And this workshop, this program, was held as part of our Sunship exhibition in the 17th Venice Architecture Biennale. And I really want to thank my dear friends Ginger and Andrew for leading these workshops during this exhibition. I think it's just been incredible to have this happening. You know, as I said, well, about 6 months ago, when we opened the Sunship exhibition, you know, one of our hopes in the overall project was to broaden the spectrum, and I would say increase the depth of experiences that are understood as education. And I also would say, you know, given that it's the Venice Architecture Biennale, we really hope to expand the poetic imagination that is understood as architecture. And these writing workshops have certainly done just that. I think it's an incredible gathering of voices, and it's just such a great joy to have The Earth of bring so much depth and voice to all of us. So I want to thank all of the people who contributed to these programs, and I want to thank Ginger and Andrew for leading these efforts. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ginger, who will begin the program. So thank you for coming, everybody.
Thank you, David. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ginger Tepner, one of the co-facilitators of the Earth of Artist Workshops. The stories, poems, essays, and images shared in this reading were either composed, edited, or curated over the course of 6 weeks, shared in a virtual space created to examine the ruptures the world imposes upon us. In the Earth of Workshops, we strive collectively and individually to come to terms with how we can utilize what these fissures reveal in order to see the world outside of the context we impose upon it. Just a few housekeeping suggestions. Please keep your microphones on mute and refrain from applauding individual readers. We'll applaud for the entire performance at the conclusion. And with that, just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I am Andrew. I'm the other facilitator for this, and I will be getting the reading started. Dalika Raj often refers to herself as a recovering academic. I would argue, however, that her academic mind is the backbone of her work. She has that perfect balance of studious intention and creative fervor, always asking questions, always looking for something to adapt to or master, always noticing. She has the ability to grab you and run and not let go. And while it feels like you are just trying to keep your feet on the ground, you are experiencing a poetic dissertation on some of the most complex moments humans have ever experienced. She can merge Eastern voices with Western forms, the political with the beautiful, urgency and history. When you experience her work, you can witness and understand the diligence it took in the past for it to exist the way that it does in this moment, which is one of the highest compliments I can give. Dalika Raj.
Thank you, Andrew, for that generous introduction. Our buried self-portraits. My people don't talk borders. They talk boomi and victory, sacred birthland. Our stories eclipse freedom's indeterminate. And yet we march onward, determined. Visceral attachments tie our souls to lost lands. Soil memories chain thoughts to earth's crust. Like New Year's white strings link the Buddha to supplicants' bodies that chant, vibrate for a good future. 1,000,000 umbilical cords pass through generations, suspended from above to download the divine. I am called to bear witness, attach memories, make meaning, senseless loss. Merge your memories, their memories, mine. Tied to voices heard years ago, walking around one Delhi refugee camp, filled with echoes of former selves, 50 years after our families flooded that unusable red earth where nothing but stones could grow. That was not our land. I found their silence, forgetting, and a need not to remember. Temporary became permanent. Shanarthi settled, gentrified. I arrived under flickering fluorescent signs promising STD and IST, and the fresh, sweet smell of that evening's chew's betel nut stained walls red, like sweet blood splattered, dripping. Our people kept shifting as others flooded in, while builders promised rupees, money men could never conceive of in this hard life, selling what little they owned to claim back their manhood, emasculated when they crossed, emptied from their male bodies through singularities. Children of the new land still came, while the steady click from the stick of the chokidar hit the ground 3 times before his whistle blew into the night, lulling us all together to sleep in the falseness of our security, made up of memory and hope, while grandchildren and future generations came and left, longing for escape from the glare of the neighbors, the intermittent streetlights, and the police who would take you away. There was no birth control near the green water tank. One lady urged her mother to abort. Years later, she chided the not aborted, her own younger sister, taunted her with the secret kept for years as it seeped out of her heart. I was the one who told mother to abort you. I gave her the herbs. She was too old, 5 hungry mouths already. You don't know hunger. You don't know lack. If you asked for food, you were always fed. Some dark nights we ate only roti and raw onions. Even that little tasted delicious. We were refugees. Scared Yama would take us across his gates like so many others we had lost. We don't know the mothers of the motherland, that land, more important than religion. My people are dying with their memories and connections to lost lands, byproducts of national stories woven by history's officials. Storytellers plunge from elation to despair. My people hid, merged narratives into the new country. Their voices reveal wounds, permanent markings from where they once bled. India hangs like a womb, key-light scars pulsating across her cut-off ovaries, those hidden fecund places where people who once belonged were separated by cuts and partitions. Rivers bled red by those sacrificed. New father and motherlands left their scars on the land and inside the people. On the left, the people cannot root. On the right, they cannot settle. We're the dregs of history, afterbirths of the nation's delivery. Skin and bones, mama. That's all that's left. Skin and bones. Relegated to backstory, we venerate histories of flux, dependent on official records, known tinged by unknown, deceptions weave truths, we tell our stories, descendants destined to accept variations on the known as our own, partial truths contained by partial lies, propelled by the written word, culled into textbooks, recited like disjointed manic mantras, national facts forward to generations who cannot know the complications. Multitudes created one single history. Independence when freedom struck 12. My people, pride of Desh, permanent Videshi. We forget the millions who, without moving, became outsiders overnight, in one night only. We were partitioned. Shanarthi and Muhajirin alike led away from our true selves, apni basha, apna khana, apne dosto. We are all partitioned. in two or three or multitudes. One family's past cannot pass, scars here, unseen inside us, while our food, our language, our traditions pass through us, leak into other land. Partition goes on and on, forward to a sense of loss, ethics of achievement at any cost, stubborn refusals to remember what happened, fearing ourselves. We, my people, seek happiness. Here in the silences, there in our memories, for none of this is real. Maya calls to me once again, and my future ancestor self weeps and urges me forward to remember what happened to my people. I just want to confirm if Terry has entered the room or not. Thank you. I have the pleasure of introducing Evan from our workshop. And I'm just going into our chat to find him. Give me a moment. To know Evan is to experience a rush of warmth and fondness whenever you are in his orbit. And I'm reading from Terry, who says, the first time I saw Evan, he was in many places at once. He was reading the Constitution live in the mill while it was simultaneously being broadcast all around Arts, Letters, and Numbers in ALN's final Constitution performance. I guess you could say Evan is a founding father of the magic that is made at ALN. He is an architect, poet, graphic novelist, master of magical realism, and the youthful IT support for our group. His special blend of gifts, including his gentle nature and unique lens for viewing the world, fuel artistic as well as personal growth. His own and those lucky to share space with him. His mind works in brilliant and unexpected ways, whether it is anthropomorphizing a New York City block, tracing steps through Arts, Letters, and Numbers, or overlaying geometry onto childhood memories of home. Math and design meet poetic imagination. His kindness and his courage in naming things has been a gift to all in our group, perhaps especially to me. Evan.
Thanks, Dalika, and thank you, Terry. I am a city block. I have tenements and shops. I have a barber and a school. I have trees and birds. I have eyes in the trees so that I can look at the birds closely. Small brown birds and large pigeon birds and wobbly medium birds. I cracked my own sidewalk so that these trees could breathe. I lift my concrete over their roots and rest it back down gently. My therapist tells me to look inside of myself, but I do not have eyes inside of myself. My therapist is the light rain that starts and then stops on an overcast day. She travels around the city for work. I will schedule an appointment when the sky darkens and she is in my neighborhood again. I do not have eyes inside of myself, so I look at the outside of myself. The barber has a window for me to look in. It is all scissors and photographs, footstools and comb jars and brooms. The school has been closed for a long time. The schoolrooms are being used for art shows. They post flyers for the shows on the corner on a fence. One day they left the door open and I could see an empty room inside. I have eyes in the trees in the courtyard. I look down into the yards and up onto the balconies and around and through the fire escapes. I do not have eyes inside, so I am waiting for the writer from the third floor to come outside. My eyes are on the garbage bins in the rear of his building. The writer tries hard not to be seen, but I know that the trash is piling up in his kitchen. I know this without seeing it. There is a laundromat on the next block over. The writer tries hard not to be noticed, but I know that the clothes are piling up in his bedroom. The next block over with the laundromat is my friend, but we rarely speak. A door opens and I am ready. The writer steps into the courtyard. A tree leans slightly over the trash bins. I hope he did not notice. I was too curious. The writer is curious too. Curious. The writer pauses to wonder what is in the next courtyard over. He knows he has seen it from his window, but now being in the courtyard, he can't remember. There is a gate in his courtyard and he doesn't know where it goes. Where does the trash go? How does the truck get into the courtyard? No, surely not a truck. Where does the garbage exit? Where do the bins empty? How funny, I think, to watch the writer wonder a thing that I already know. I know the writer knows so many things that I so often wonder. The writer walks back through the courtyard door, and I look as close as a tree can look to see the hallway on the inside. Where does it go? Do they have a stair? Is there a mailbox? Has the writer made it home? Yes, the writer is home. I know this because the writer is at his window. We look at one another through the fire escape. He is piecing together the courtyard. I am parsing together the apartment. Maybe I will talk to my friend today. I will ask my friend if they remember the writer from the last time he brought his laundry. Part 2. I will speak to my therapist today. I speak through the rattling of the air conditioners in the windows. I have more to say in the summer than in the winter. It is summer and it has rained all night. My appointment is for when the rain lessens to almost nothing. The rain is still heavy enough for the writer to bring an umbrella to the door. He opens the umbrella before he even steps outside. The writer tries so hard not to be seen. I know that he is walking along underneath the umbrella. I do not know if he is hiding from me or from the rain. My therapist asks me where I learned to be gentle. It is a warm question. I did not think of myself this way until now. I tell her that on winter mornings, I watch the snow falling. The snow is silent until it melts and drips down the fire escapes. This is why I am quiet in the winter. The snow lies gently on my sidewalks. This is why I am gentle with my concrete. I rattle out my thoughts through a fin tube unit on the 4th floor. My therapist answers with a few drops of rain on the concrete. I collect them in a puddle to remember for later. The writer does not return home until late at night. It has stopped raining. He is holding his umbrella by his side. I can hear the writer speaking as he walks. My ears are the cracks in the sidewalk slabs. The writer is making a phone call. It's been such a long time. The writer steps on a crack. He is by his apartment, but he keeps walking around the block. Have you been able to see? A bird tries to peck a crumb out of the hole in the concrete. The writer walks by and the bird ducks under a bench. Should see each other again soon. The writer turns at the end of the block and heads back towards his building. Been so good to hear from you. It is so still at night. I do not know if the writer has gone to sleep. I am not asleep. I sleep some nights when the street is quiet and I drift off without realizing. The garbage trucks and street sweepers wake me up in the morning. But tonight is warm, so I hum to myself through window units that sit on aluminum brackets. I look up through branches into the darkest blue sky until it is not the darkest blue anymore. The birds start to sing and hum along with me. The writer tries hard not to be watched, but I know that his refrigerator is empty. Well, I did not quite know this. I did not know it until the writer left his apartment and walked to the market across from the old school. The market is next to the laundromat. I will have to pay closer attention to how often he goes to the market. I would like to understand when his refrigerator is empty, even without seeing. The writer does not have an air conditioning unit. The day is warm. The writer opens a window. Perhaps he is not trying so hard after all not to be viewed. I hum a tune from a third-floor cooling system in case he is listening. Part 3. My friend is a city block. They have apartments and a grocery. They have pizza on one side and ice cream on the other. They have a laundromat and an animal shelter. This morning I sat by the park and talked with my friend. I asked my friend about the writer. My friend does not remember the writer. My friend does have a singer. I did not know about the singer until now. This makes sense, said my friend. The singer is shy and only sings when he forgets to close the window. He sings big hopeful tunes and small sad tunes and medium wobbly tunes. My friend hopes to hear the singer again tomorrow. I do not have a singer, but I do have a saxophonist. The saxophonist lives in the apartment below the writer. The saxophonist is still learning. She learns up and down and around the scales. She learns in the mid-afternoon when the sun shines through her windows. I watch the sun and then listen closely when it shines at the right angle. I do this every day. The writer tries hard not to be heard. He tries much harder than the saxophonist. He tries a bit harder than the singer. But I know that he is writing. I have not heard the writer read a poem, even when he has left the window open. I have heard the writer recite a dialogue when taking the trash to the courtyard. He did not know that I was listening. I was too curious not to listen. I will hold on to the words that the writer dictates. I will not tell the words to anyone, not even to my friend, not until the writer writes them down for himself. I wonder if the writer remembers what he said at the garbage bins. If he has forgotten, then I will remember it for him. I have decided that this is important. The sun shines on a wobbly bird, on a branch, on a tree, on a block. I have decided that this is important also. I hum along to the birds warbling. I rattle along to the writer's wonderings. The day is warm, and the wobbly bird decides to rest. And I am going to introduce Carol. I want to hear all of Carol's stories. Carol has shared so many stories with us, from childhood homes to Catholic school, from hills in the Shetland Isles to prisons in Rwanda. Through her own family history and through the generational history of those around her, Carol brings a combination of a careful sensitivity and a consistent bravery and a sense of resolve, without which these stories could not have been possible. I agree with Andrew's assessment. I wish Carol could tell all of my stories too. From journalistic photography to intimate conversation, Carol constructs moments of clarity that resonate out into all of us. Carol McGorry.
Sorry, muted. Laugh track. It's the day after Christmas and we're at Hershey Amusement Park in Pennsylvania. My daughter-in-law Liz and two of my crumbles, my grandchildren Crumbles, as I am Graham Cracker. We've traveled there overnight I don't know what's happening here. We've traveled there overnight with Liz's friend Dana and her 2 children, who also call me Graham Cracker, and sometimes questionably Cracker. Dana dares me to take a ride on the historic wooden roller coaster, the Comet, a wooden outdoor structure made in 1946, 2 years before I was born. I have to show the crumbles that I'm up for it. But after this very steep climb and deep dip down into what in Hershey they call the hollow, I scream and close my eyes. Dana yells back to me in the seat ahead, promises that the first dip was the worst and it'll be fine after this. But then we take another steep climb and whiplashing dip. And I shout back to Dana, laughing, "You lie." When it ends after 2 minutes, I crawl out of the car wobble, and my neck hurts. An hour later, Dana talks me into getting into the queue for the laugh track, another roller coaster, but this time it's in the Mid-America section of the park. No different really from the vintage one, except that it's an indoor track and rolls backwards, lighted with colorful scenes and characters that appear out of nowhere. The backwards motion is delightful after the anticipatory terror of the vintage rolling forward, steeply up and down. Fear is replaced with amazement. What's that? What's next? And the swirling feels delightful. The motion and jostling past yellow and orange harlequin patterns adds to the surprise and serves as a distraction from the strange conversation Dana and I had just had minutes before above the heads of the crumbles when we first queued up for the ride. The distorting fun mirrors distract the crumbles and keep them from hearing Dana and I talk, both tall and above the crowd, about her father as we walk slowly together within the serpentine guardrails. I asked Dana about her father, Gary, just diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at Thanksgiving. I met Gary the summer before when he drove us, Dana, the Crumbles, and myself from New Jersey back to Long Island, they to see a concert at Jones Beach and me to make my way home. We'd had dinner seaside that night, talking about his travels to Tanzania. He shared photos of himself with lions. Gary's just a few years older than I, so we talk about taking daring adventures before we won't be able to do so. Fearless he is. Fearless I am to travel to Rwanda and interview genocideers with my friend Claudine, the sole survivor of her family of 12 from the 1994 genocide. But neither Gary nor I really look too closely at time, as in future time. And now, only 6 months later, Dana and I are talking about end of life, his life. Is he in pain, I ask? Have you thought of pot? Got it, Dana says. Oil and an e-pen, but it doesn't help much. She wants more for him, but knows it's not possible, probable. Have you thought of ways to help him at the end when he's most in pain? Already talked with a nurse. We walk a few feet more past distorted fun house mirrors, bodies elongated, shortened, squashed, eyes on faces googly. The Crumbles are taking selfies, sending them out on the Snapchat and Instagram. There's an amount of morphine, a slight bit above the threshold, that can slowly end a life while in care, but below a threshold so as not to make for an inquiry. Ask Alex, my other son, who is a nurse, Dana says. He'll know. And then it's our turn in the queue. We step into the laugh track roller coaster seats, buckle up. The Crumbles are excited. The coaster rolls backwards throughout, and I'm not frightened of this ride. Don't see what's coming, going backwards, and the lighted figures and landscape delight the eye. Evan, can you? Thank you, Evan. Burnt mounds. My grandfather Jeremiah was born here in the Shetland Islands, 1888. Never go there, he told my mother, Constance. There's nothing there. I go anyway and find long lost, but mainly I find burnt mounds. My son Alex and I stand by the shoreline, the wind relentless, peering silently into a burnt mound on Bressay Island. The mound, like the others in the Northern Isles, is crescent shaped, filled with shattered stone fragments and charcoal, shattered from being heated by fire and then showered with the cold water of the North Sea. Their purpose is still only imagined: cooking, tanning hides, felting wool, all prehistory and supposition. I am imagining my ancestors here too. I have documents, birth, marriage, death records, minutes from town meetings, and I am able to stand square in the middle of my great-grandmother's croft room within the 4 remaining stone walls open to the sky. I step over remnants of wooden chairs and walk carefully under a still remaining stairway to nowhere. When I tell my mother that the records reveal that Jeremiah was not born here at the Croft, that he was born on the mainland in Leith, Constance says, "But Carol, if I believe you, I'd have to not believe my father." Alex and I later traveled to Leith and look further into the archives. We find a note about the death of a great aunt born on the Shetland Croft, believed to be illegitimate. Alex says, "You know, we're making their stories up." Ginger Tepner's poetry and prose takes readers to wild places that defy preset references, inviting them to fall into the art as though a painting or a dance. She creates and offers us words and imagery, voice and space to both witness a vision and to create an imaginative version of our own. For example, in her poem, Artifacts, ending with, "To be buried with this body, a feather, a marble, a button, a seed, a word, a ring, and a kiss." Tepner's words invite rereading for fresh echoes and connections, a gift in this time of pooled and repetitive speech. If you are fortunate to workshop with her, her thoughtfulness, generosity, and vulnerability will build off your own creative process and generate powerful insights. Her vision zooms both in and back with an obvious love for language and nuance and humanity. Ginger Tepner.
Thank you, Carol. Snapshot. It was almost winter, cold and naked trees and leaden clouds and biting wind. At least that is how Harold Bell Wright described it when he tried to recall. Rebecca was dressed in a red one-piece snowsuit, he said. On her head was the blue wool hat Mrs. Wright had knit in the evenings before Rebecca was born, along with tiny booties and a receiving blanket. Mrs. Wright was sure Rebecca was going to be a boy. If she had been a boy, her name was going to be Thomas Charles, if for no other reason than these 2 names together sounded upstanding. Rebecca was a cheerful baby despite the fact her mother grieved the loss of her hypothetical son. The name Rebecca in the biblical sense means to tie or secure, and in the literal sense, a rope with a noose. Rebecca was meant to grow into a captivating beauty. In the meantime, she snared the heart of her pragmatic father, who took every opportunity to check on his pride and joy, taking multiple breaks during his otherwise rigid work schedule for a quick cuddle and coo. In the years before marriage and the transition to farm life, Mrs. Wright had many immediate friends. The rigors of taking care of a home and husband and subsequent baby had pushed any intimacies between the women of her youth and herself deep into the recesses of her bone-tired body. But it was not disappointment alone that led to her isolation. It was the endless prairie sky, especially low and gray on certain days, that seemed to stretch from no end to no end, which tended to make Mrs. Wright weary. On these days, it was as if the color drained from the tree branches, from the top of the silo and the roof of the chicken coop, creating tributaries of color flowing into a river that rushed from the farm, washing the hues from the landscape, as it gushed far away as fast as it could. What was left was only dust, dust that lodged itself in Mrs. Wright's nostrils and the corners of her eyes. Dust she constantly tried to contain with a broom. Dust that discolored all of her best linens. Not even the lace tablecloth that had survived passage from Ireland was spared. Harold was impervious to the dust and the siren call of intrusive thoughts that crowded his wife's head. He had no way of knowing how often she imagined getting too close to the river of color, how she pressed out the fear of jumping the same way she avoided the knife sitting on the counter when she felt the irrational surge of desire to plunge it into his heart. The same way she felt the quiver of apprehension when she was bathing the baby. She was certain that it was only a thought not connected to impulse. She was also not certain. For this reason, she often left the baby alone, safely strapped in her stroller, where whatever harm could come to her was, relatively speaking, the better option. This is why, on a brisk November afternoon, after the cooking oil started to boil and smoke and catch fire, and Mrs. Wright resisted the impulse to flee, Rebecca was found snug in her red snowsuit and blue wool knit cap, strapped in her stroller out in the yard. In the background, the Chevy and Harold's new Oliver stood sentinel in front of the chicken coop. Rebecca was wide-eyed, and the chickens were quiet as flames engulfed the house. Andrew Helton is precise. This precision is not fragile. Its strength is born of rigorous closeness. Every endeavor he initiates is created with intention and thorough engagement. He is not afraid of exertion or difficulty. In fact, he relishes the uncomfortable challenges necessary for growth. Because of this, no question is left unexplored, whether he is training for a powerlifting competition, printmaking, editing a manuscript, creating a life with his equally talented wife, or writing poetry. His poetic subtleties are the elemental stuff the earth is made of, rooted in equal parts encyclopedic knowledge and profound compassion. His keen sensitivity, intuition, and imagination direct him time and again towards the inexpressible, that which lies beyond words. His integrity drives him not only to personally experience all of everything, but to create a new space for the rest of us to inhabit as well, as witness and witnessed, and we are all the better for it. Andrew Helton.
Thanks, Jen. Love you. Beethoven. I find it difficult to enjoy Jack Spicer. He has the face of a serial killer, a pederast, a ne'er-do-well, the face used in the commercial for a PBS documentary on someone nefarious. I can imagine the slant of his mouth, the curl of his cheek when he enunciates the words I am reading, hearing the saliva between his tongue and teeth when he... I want to believe a photo exists somewhere that makes him look like he writes or I feel, but there are so few, so there is no escaping it. I want to love him the way I love someone I know little about, just the right amount. And I cannot even imagine it to exist as a face beyond the one I have seen, so there is no escaping it. I want to love him the way I could love, excuse me. I want to love him the way I could love something before I heard Beethoven in the 4th grade with one of those just outside the circle of friends at the keys playing Sonata Pathetique. And the publishers always use one for the cover of his work, so there is no escaping it. Beethoven, a faceless, voiceless oracle as easy to love as the idea of God. I want to love him the way I could when my innocence could not recognize the loss of it in others. It wasn't about the music. It was about abstraction, and there was no escaping it. Dalika, would you like to introduce Terry?
Terry Abruzzo enters our Zoom room with curiosity and an evergreen smile. She is sharp and sparkly. She engages our words in a friendly manner that encourages us to reflect on the movement of our words and ideas. Everyone should have the pleasure of the energy and insight of Terry Abruzzo in their ALN workshops. A modern Renaissance woman, Abruzzo had been a flight attendant, a lawyer, and a teacher. She has explored the depths of her own and others' humanity, representing and working on refugee asylum seekers. She writes with keen observation and thoughtfulness on everyday life. She is generous in her readings of other people's works with a keen eye to detail. She zoomed into us from Belize, Chicago, and a hockey arena. Thanks to her existence on the sunships the earth of, we can all now claim 1 degree of separation from the 44th president of the United States of America. Terry Abruzzo.
Thank you, Dalika. Young no more. When you have lived in one city for a long time, the streets become movie sets that change with years and seasons, capturing shots of you at various times in your life. The movie reel clicking through images at different ages, young lawyer, young mother, young no more. The changing buildings, businesses, and public art signify the passage of time. A few painted cows and cool globes still appear randomly around town. The rug stores endlessly going out of business. Mattress stores, which will certainly outlast the apocalypse. The fine architecture from the 1800s anchoring it all. Look up and you will find the building's dates on the cornices. If I could stop the zoetrope on different snapshots in time, would I feel the concerns of that day? Would I feel the excitement and trepidation of first days in court, standing up in front of a judge, telling my client's story? The love-laced ennui of inducing sleep in a baby with endless hours of locomotion in a stroller. Ruminations on career, friends, marriage, whether this spot or bump is anything. On game days, the Cubs fans in their blue and red leave Wrigley and trickle back to their own neighborhoods. My lack of any sports passion, Bears, Cubs, Sox, Bulls, Hawks, don't care. Feels like a defect in my citizenship. I keep it under wraps. Up and down Lincoln Avenue, driving my children to school along that slant line, cutting through the east-west grid, past the spot where Dillinger was shot outside the Biograph. The Dillinger mural and gangster's quote mark the infamous alley along with a large ad for Chicago crime tours an ironic negative branding campaign that our city could do without. On days when my children are too tired or uninterested in talking, I sit behind the wheel, silently beaming rays of love from my heart into them that I hope will catalyze in their cells and become something they carry in their DNA and feel humming within them every moment of every day for the rest of their lives. Our side yard was a dumping ground after the Great Chicago Fire. My boys dug up old apothecary bottles after the crumbling bungalow that had been there was demolished. What will remain from this time of masks and rubber gloves? Those weird metal devices sold on Instagram that hook over your finger for opening doors and performing other tasks germ-free? Sense memories of their mom's anxiety over an unrecognizable world. I hope it will be the beams of love. Before voicemail. I cleaned the tray table and the seat's arms with a wipe and hid the wipe in the seat pocket. I did not give it to the flight attendant when she came through asking for trash. I often don't turn on my device's airplane mode for takeoff and landing. A law school professor told me I should include my time as a flight attendant on my resume, or law firms would assume that I'd been in jail. Senior men preferred to talk about me being a flight attendant rather than my high grades or law review article. I am highly sensitive to any behavior that could be perceived as rude or dismissive to a service person. When I represented United in a lawsuit concerning Denver's baggage system, I was afraid one of my old friends would recognize me and out me to their general counsel, who would have been appalled that his expensive lawyer was once a flight attendant. I taught high school English before flying for United, and one of my associates was a former student, a real smart aleck. We never spoke of it. Teaching high school English is much harder than being a big firm lawyer. Education was the family business, but my parents didn't protest flight attending, fitness instructing, or bartending. I learned when I interviewed for a fellowship for returning women lawyers that people who had held many different service jobs made the best hires. And I believe that everyone should experience a pocketful of beer-drenched tip money. I was a summer associate with Barack Obama at Sidley and Austin the summer he met Michelle. I found Barack to be very serious. He was the editor of Harvard's Law Review, and he received many phone calls. This was before voicemail. The receptionist mispronounced his name hilariously. Barack's Ubumu, line 1. Barrett Obaman, line 2. He told me not to tell this story because a time before voicemail meant that we were old. I loved introducing my father to Barack when he ran for Illinois Senate. I recently threw out the Obama for Senate sign moldering in my garage. My dad, a lifelong Democrat, met Eleanor Roosevelt when he was in college. My brother-in-law likened my father to Forrest Gump. I turned a blind eye when Dad embellished. He told people that Barack asked me out before Michelle, but I turned him down. One of Dad's friends invented some fitness device and asked him to give one to the president. When my father asked me how it made me feel that someone I knew was elected president, I responded, old. I was able to take Dad on a tour of New York City before he died, and he was so moved to see the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, where great-grandpa Abruzzo entered the country at age 16 in 1908. I will make my great-grandmother's delicious Sicilian meatballs and sauce when my family comes for Thanksgiving. My printout of the recipe is splashed with tomato sauce. I send the recipe to all who ask, and many ask. I will fly to Florida for Christmas with my husband's family this year. Last year, we were afraid to fly on airplanes, and we siloed in our nuclear family clusters. I am sad that the days between Thanksgiving and Christmas will always include the anniversary of my dad's death. We spend alternating Christmases with my husband's family, and I am always mad when it's a husband's family year. I once called my best friend from a closet to complain. My nieces and I finally put the kibosh on men smoking cigars while the women cleaned up. I'm relieved this year not to witness Dad's absence. We still have no gravestone for him because COVID has taken the lives of many granite miners in India. Mom and I wonder if Dad's gravestone could be sitting on a container ship somewhere in the ocean. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everyone. And thank you all for being here and coming to this. I have the privilege of wrapping this all up. I just want to say, first and foremost, that this is one of the most amazing groups of writers and creators and just general humans that I've ever had the privilege of sharing a space with. I will miss this. I will miss seeing your faces every week and all of our conversations. We get, Ginger and I get asked the question a lot, including from people who are in the class while they are taking the class, what the hell is this? And it usually comes out that way. So I figured I might as well try to answer that question for everyone and for everybody else who's here or who might be interested in joining us the next time we do this. Bob Ross used to say that while he was painting, it was the only time in his life that he had absolute freedom. And that is the gift that he wanted to give to others. And I think anybody who devotes time to creating has felt that way, even if it's just for a brief moment. At the same time, right, it's difficult for the same people or anyone really to find freedom of self outside of those places. In those moments. And one of the principles that Ginger and I share is that art cannot just be about a product or an end goal or reaching some kind of level of development or success, that art is a space. And a class cannot just be about a skill, a workshop can't just be about finishing something or telling somebody what to do next or line edits or grammar or, you know, anybody can go pick up Strunk and White and have most of those questions answered. Creating art has no value if it doesn't change you. And I mean, as its creator, if it doesn't force you to think differently, to treat people differently, to see the world differently, and maybe most importantly, to create spaces where people are free to express themselves however they wish, whoever they are, and to feel the freedom to be versions of themselves they wish to be, versions they might not be able to be anywhere else. Art is something that you give, right? And it is amazing. I mean, Ginger and I talk about this all the time. And whenever we get ready to do one of these workshops, the conversation that we always have is how amazing it is to see what people can do when they feel free and when they feel safe. And the other kind of piece of this is that I always hated sitting in classes when a discussion would turn into a digression, and you know, the teacher or the professor would intervene and bring the conversation back to whatever the topic was for that day. And to me, those digressions were engagement. Those conversations where people were relating to an experience and opening it wider in their own way and through their own lens. You know, those are the moments in classes where I saw people smile, where I heard excited voices, where quiet people opened up, where people either agreed sort of emphatically because they were excited, or they argued constructively. Those were the moments when the voices of the people in the room actually had agency. And in so many ways, I think that what Ginger and I try to do is create a space for those digressions to happen. And anybody who has been in one of our classes will certainly agree with the fact that we have a lot of digressions. But that agency is freedom. You know, we want to create an environment where everyone is free to express themselves and can have a degree of agency they don't get to have anywhere else in the world. And you know, I think the way that we like to explain it is that we're trying to embody art, to see it as a space rather than an act, and a space where everyone in it has equal control over what happens and what it becomes. And selfishly, the other idea that Ginger and I share is that we do this so we can be a part of those spaces too. Because, and Ginger, she jokes all the time, I do, that we're doing this because we wanted to make a place for us. And because we know we'll learn as much from everybody else as we hope to impart on them. And I cannot even begin to express in words how true that is and how much it means to us. And if you come to one of our workshops for the first time, I think you'll be surprised at how quickly something very special is created and how quickly you will grow to care about everyone else in that space as a person, even though they may be thousands of miles away and you've only known them for a short time. Surprised by the openness and the vulnerability that happens. In fact, I would challenge you to not find a family there. And we certainly think of everyone who comes through these ruptures as our family. And to that end, it has been an enormous privilege for Ginger and I to share the last 6 weeks with this group and to get to create and share in that freedom together. And I just want to thank you all for coming. And I think we'll now be opening this up for a Q&A session. If anyone has any questions or queries or wants to ask Ginger and I or any of today's participants anything. Thank you.
I think we were going to applaud. Yeah.
Oh, yes, applaud.
Well, I can just say that it's incredibly moving. I'm deeply moved by everything I heard tonight. I mean, on many levels, the depth of trust that was built between all of you was so clear, was so obvious. That you've created a place where when you were together, and I have to guess when you were alone, but knowing you would be together again, meaning when you were writing, so clear that the depth of tone in your thought was was coming from a place of trust and also care. And when I say care, I mean like really caring what your friends thought about what you were finding while you wrote, you know, like, and that's kind of the key to it, right? It's like, you know, imagining the other while you're alone is, I think, one of the essences of great work of every kind, writing, music, drawing, imagining the other, and in a way caring for them by the amount of both precision and vulnerability that you bring to your work is an incredible expression. That's why we need each other. I mean, you know, there's probably a lot of reasons. but you know, I don't think we can make any meaningful work without others, you know, without knowing that we're going to share it and hear other people's works. So I'm incredibly moved by the whole thing. Each of the works touched my heart. And also I think Andrew's words at the end were very, very moving as well. It's literally the mission of Arts, Letters, and Numbers. You just spelled out our mission and vision. And I'll have to take notes. Maybe we can talk, and I'll try to take some notes to clarify our mission statement. But beautifully said, Andrew, really. And thank you both, Ginger and Andrew, and everybody. But thank you for doing this. I mean, my God, you know, if somebody had asked me about, you know, online education 2 years ago, they would have got a very different answer. But the last 2 years has really taught me and many people what's possible. I'm talking about in terms of creating a creative community, you know, creating a community that actually is really involved and engaged and is all over the world. I think it's just incredible what's possible. And the Earth of project has really been, I mean, I don't want to ramble on too long, but the truth is, whatever it was 2 years ago, when we had to cancel everything that summer, we had 5 programs we were going to run in person. And 2 people, Ginger being one of them, and Michael Harrison with the music, both said, well, why don't we just try it online? Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, you know? And I was like, all right. I wasn't ready to do my program online. And they did it, and I was amazed. I was blown away immediately. I came to Ginger's writing workshop and then Michael's music. And then I followed. I decided, I mean, like 6-8 months later, I was like, okay, I guess I can try to do a studio online. And it's totally because of seeing what was possible through what Ginger had done. I would not have gone there, but I saw the incredible community that Ginger and Andrew create, and now we're really full on, you know. So thank you. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. I mean that.
You know, David, I had strange connections. I was at the hairdresser and met Rika, and she said, come up to New York to the Arts, Letters, and Numbers, and I spent a weekend there. And I loved everything and I wanted to continue, but then the pandemic. And I want to say this virtual community has been a lifeline for me. And Ginger and Andrew are just exceptional at making you comfortable, bringing more out, and then we raised questions that we didn't know we were going to think about. And from the description, though, I want to say, while I was in lockdown, I went, I don't know what this means, a rupture. But I said, but I'm going in the pool.
It's been great swimming with you, Carol. I would love to just be able to say a thank you to Andrew and Ginger for leading this group, and to Carol and Evan and Dalika and Leslie for being so supportive of each other, with our works being so different, our personalities, our lives being so different, yet also connected at the heart, and by a foundational level of trust, a thread that just I think will last a long time. And I hope that we can continue to support each other, because it's just been a really beautiful experience for me. So I just wanted to thank you all.
And join the chorus as well to just say thanks again to Andrew and Ginger and David, I guess, for creating the whole thing, and then us kind of zooming in from wherever. Lifeline is the word. And definitely that's how I experienced it. I would look forward to all of our sessions and all the crazy readings that got thrown at us and the kind of questions that we got pushed to ask ourselves of our own work. But really, Andrew and Ginger, I mean, some of us are educators as well and have taught in many different settings. The grace with which you quickly create a safe space, there's a lot to be said for that. It's very difficult to find spaces where creativity can flourish in a way that feels fully supported. And that's partially everyone else who's, like Carol looked at the description and went, huh? Okay, I'm in. And something, resonated and appealed to us in the description, but just the way in which you led us or open forumed us throughout these last few weeks is really remarkable. And I think the readings show that too. I loved hearing everyone's final versions. I could hear the tweaks, so that was really cool. Because you could hear, oh wait, I didn't hear that before. So it was amazing to hear, like, yeah, Evan, I loved your piece. Carol, oh my God, the crumbles, like that's just incredible. And laugh track, which wasn't laughy. Carrie's descriptions of so many details. It's just amazing. We miss you, Leslie. Thank you. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you guys have taken time to do over the last few weeks. I know it's an intense time. And I hope, and I already said this somewhere before, but I say it out loud again in the Zoom room where other people are witnessing, I hope this continues. I know you're all allowed to meet back in person. So what? That's my response. Keep this going too. It's a special space in its own way. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just also like to say, Carol, what you said about, what is this? I was also the first summer that I did the Earth of One. The Earth of what? I was wondering, I was wondering, what is that? And then rupture. And then this is exactly what you said, Carol. And it was just, and then now I just get it. It's like the earth of, that's what it is. And that's a room and a place and a time that I can go to. And it needs no further answer or explanation. It just is. And it's been wonderful to get to know Andrew a little bit better, because I know Andrew, the first Earth of, you were there just at the end, I think, for a little while. So it's been wonderful. Heard so much about you from Ginger and the two of you. It's very clear the working relationship that you have is really special, and it's wonderful to have been here with you both. Very spotty for me, unfortunately, this time, but I hope there'll be another opportunity. And what an amazing group. Yeah, all of these people. And David, it's nice to see you again too, just briefly, and all the programming that you've been doing with the Biennale. It's incredible. And you especially are, what you said, working with we, right? Working with the we and the community of just being so embedded with humanity. It's wonderful to see all the work that you've been doing too. Anyway, thank you. It's just good to see y'all. Glad to be here this last night and really enjoyed all the work. And also Dalika, yeah, sort of even though I was very spotty, my attendance was very spotty, unfortunately, this time, I could still see the continuity from the beginning, and I missed the middle, and now the very end, I see it's been wonderful just to see how it's all come together. And thank you, Ginger.
You're welcome. I don't have much to add to any of that except for to thank all of you. And I'm just so proud of everybody and so happy that everybody's experience was so positive. And I look forward to the next one that we do. David.
Absolutely. No, as you
Yay.
tell me the next dates and we'll get it out.
Okay. Well, we were laughing. We have to come up with some new content because we have so many return people. we need something new.
Maybe that's a good thing. Having a little fan club it'll force us to come up with new ideas. We have to keep some excitement going. I think Evan could probably teach this class by now.
I think it's
Through all the conversations with everybody, we just had so many other materials or references. We could, who knows, take them, mix them up.
And it's, I'm sure that everybody probably imagines Ginger and I having these like really involved conversations about what we're going to do. And most of the time we're thinking the same thing anyway, and so it doesn't really matter. But it's like David brought up this question of like, how do you do this? Like, how do you create that feeling in a virtual space or online? And honestly, I have no idea. I don't. Like Ginger and I mean, most of the questions that Ginger and I have revolve around that. And when we started doing this after her first class went really well, we had a lot of conversations about that. Like, how do you do this, and why? But at the same time, like, why does it keep happening, right? Like, it happens, right? Because when we've experienced this kind of thing in person, and we wanted to give it, we wanted to share it, and then it happened virtually, and we didn't really know why, and we still don't know why. We're not thinking about it too hard. It just, I think it. I don't know. If Ginger and I do something together, I think it'll turn out this way, just no matter what. It's not a conscious decision. It's just that is, I think, we just sort of intuitively know what we want something to be like, and it just sort of comes together. But obviously it takes.
You could have lied. You could have lied. It just made it sound like just a little bit, more together.
Well, but that's what it takes. It's not just, it takes all of the people, all of you guys that come and accept that, right? Because I mean, like all of you said, I think pretty much everybody who has come into one of these workshops has said the same thing. Like, I don't know what this is, but I feel compelled to jump into it. And that leap, I think that is maybe the thing, is that the people who are willing to look at what we're trying to do and decide to jump into the pool, are the ones that already sort of have committed to bringing that, right? To just accepting and letting it be whatever it's going to be, rather than kind of coming into it with an idea of what it's supposed to be or what they want. So maybe that's the thing, Ginger. Maybe we're just really confusing. And and anybody who's willing to jump is somebody that keeps us afloat.
No, I'm going to protest that description. I think what we enter is a confluence of your conversations that have been taking place apparently for years, and most recently through ALN. right? And you guys have been talking about different aspects of your own works with, I guess, initially with each other, I ascertained from your kind of discussions. So it's sort of like this, we have been invited into your living rooms for this ongoing exploration and discussion. And we don't quite know what party we're entering into, but we know the people are cool, so we'll go. And then we find out that the people are cool, and so we're reassured, and then we want to come back and get invited to the next party. So that's my version. It's
think
an
that the
amazing
other-
space.
Thank you. I think the other part is that the people that are, I feel like you're called to it almost, because we haven't had anybody that showed up that didn't fit, you know? So I think that there's a desire and that people want a space where they can create and do that freely. Yeah, because I mean, so far, every group has just been perfect.
You know,
Yeah.
I think that might be the secret. David, everybody knows, I've been teaching online and I hate it. and I was more or less against it. But I think there's something to this group because of the description, who it attracts, the mentors that encourage us. Maybe it's just best to stay on Zoom. Maybe in person we won't like each other. And then we'd have to have food and
Well, I'll tell you what.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Food is
Go
my
ahead, Dawn.
favorite part.
No, I was going to say, I mean, the discovery of so many resonances was so deeply reassuring for me. You know, yes, there is isolation, partially because of the pandemic, partially because I live halfway across the earth. And so, you know, it's kind of this double isolation that I've been feeling. And so when Carol, when you started speaking about Rwanda and your experiences, I was like, someone understands this. That's amazing. And Terry's, shared her, I think it was in your introduction, Terry, about the work that you were doing for refugee asylum seekers, and that very remarkable story of the Afghan man who you helped to seek asylum here. I mean, it was just so amazing and moving. And I realized that we're in a place where people are both doing things in the world actively and also thinking about them. And that's not very often for me to find that. Like, I need both. I need that active doing something, and then that creative something, and then the sort of contemplative something. And you provide all of that space. So I think it's a confluence that bought it. I'm not sure. Whatever it is, just do it again. Like cut, copy, C, what is it? Control V, Control C, Control V. Like, just please keep going with it, informally or formally. I'm happy to spend hours in Zoom rooms, and we did, right? Like some of us, I think Carol once with you and Terry once with you. We just kind of, the Zoom kept going because we could, and everyone else was gone, and we were just talking like for an hour. It wasn't like a small amount of time. And that's pretty precious, I feel like, and to just be able to take time for someone else in that way. It's a big thing right now. So yeah, sorry, Andrew, I have laggy, everyone else knows this, I just need to say it out loud again. I have laggy, I live in the developing world, right? So internet is laggy over here. So sorry, sometimes I don't realize people are speaking because their lips are moving, but I don't hear anything.
I think it's so much more meaningful now since the lockdown and the nation or the international questions. It's just so wonderful to find people who are willing to explore things instead of declaring things.
And and I think, I mean, that's the big part of it, and what Ginger said, but I will say, Carol, or whoever said maybe we'll hate each other in person, Ginger and I met this way first, before Zoom, just on what, like in a forum, that's what we had, or like on Canvas with no interaction. And then when we met in person the first time, instant, just soulmates. I mean, for forever. So I trust that what we feel in the Zoom is real. but I do think that what you and Ginger just said it touches on something that, and what Dalika said too, that Ginger and I have had a lot of conversations about trying to stay connected or find some kind of connection to spaces like this. And because we've had that, and it meant a great deal to us, and it's very hard to find. And I think, maybe this has to be like that, because we are looking for that is, that thread is also, however intuitively that happens, is the thread that people like you guys respond to, that there is sort of like an unconscious movement towards something. You don't necessarily have an explanation for what it is, or even know that you're looking for it, but you just, like Ginger said, you just feel compelled or called to it. And that's how we feel, and that's why trust me, we have agonized over trying to find some sort of literal concrete language to describe the experiences that we have around writing and art, and at a certain point, I think we just said that the language takes away from whatever that is, that to try to describe it takes away from that experience. And to just, let's just do it and see what happens, and see who, to call out and see who calls back.
But you are planning a publication, so there is a finite something that you're thinking of pulling this all together into. Maybe I'll work on. So I started. It wasn't formally an ode, but I started my ode to all of you, the Earth of, which you heard a version of. Evan, you're in it now, so that kind of refers to all of our conversations. So that's what I'm going to keep working on, to keep me going until the next time we meet. Is like just my love letter to all of you.
And since it's just us here, even though this is being recorded, I have to tell you guys, I'm heartbroken. I'm just crestfallen. I can't even believe that happened. We went to see theater for the first time in 2.5 years today, and I had changed when we scheduled our reading evening. I changed our tickets to an afternoon matinee, and I didn't factor in the time change. I was here an hour. I can't even believe it, and we were in a freaking theater. So I'm so sorry to everyone, like beyond, and so sorry for myself. Like, I'm just so sad I didn't get to read Evan's introduction. And just be part of all of it, like from the very first second. I really adore all of you, and no words, but
We're just glad you're alive.
Yeah,
we were a little bit worried.
Yes, Terry, you made it, but we were
bloody hell. What the bloody hell?
We couldn't imagine what would keep you from it.
Okay, everyone put your hearts on. or put your heart things on. I'm taking a picture of that. That's okay.
Oh, wait, I got a big heart.
Oh, Carol, it's virtual, honey. Someone tell Carol we're virtual. She just left the screen.
She has props. She needs to use her
It's
props.
not real props. Oh my God, she's so cute. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Smile, you're on camera. Okay. I'll send it to you.
I had this custom made by a glass artist, but I think I exaggerated the dimension.
I was just worried when you didn't respond that something had happened. But of course you were at the theater.
My fucking phone off.
Like, oh no.
Wait, what did you see? That's what I really want to know right now. What did you see that was so much more important than, no, I mean, what did you see?
It was Bug by Tracy Letts, and it was horrifying. We went to Steppenwolf, and it was a show called Bug. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but it was essentially two people who have a mental breakdown in a motel room together for 2 hours. So it was, yeah. But it was, at least, you know, it felt good to be back to theater. Just had I known what was. Anyways, I'm looking for my picture of Dalika from the first day when I said, wait, this is how this really works, so that we can get feedback. And do I have to cite you for this feedback? Do I have to cite you every time I use one of your comments? And Dalika said, no, just thank us all at the end of a publication. But I also got this great picture of her that I have to, before I die, publish something just so I can thank you all and then include the picture of Dalika.
You look for the picture, and this is what I just took.
Well, that was very meta.
No, I reneged on that, Terry. I said, if you cite me or my thoughts or anything that I've said in the last 5 weeks, that you have to cite anything according to Dalika, and then it's got to be in a footnote. No, go back, take it 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 back. No, because put it in front of your face. Yeah, there. Okay, now come forward. No, but it has to be in front of your face.
Seriously?
Yeah, there. Go back to your face. Go back to your face. There it is.
Oh, wow, that's a funky thing.
Wait, I'm taking a screenshot of that too.
The meta in the meta in the meta in the meta.
A screenshot of the screenshot. That's like a Borgias starting.
And Leslie, I know that you had to be in and out a bit. Was it in the beginning though that you asked about books that or artworks that were word and image?
That
As
I
an
asked about artworks that were word and image.
Did you?
Did I ask about that, you said?
Yeah, I'm
Probably.
wondering in the beginning because you mentioned that you are an artist and
Yes, so I'm sure I did ask about that.
okay. So if I don't know if our emails are in the profiles or something, I could send you some, some that I have spent too much money on.
Okay.
If you guys are amenable, I would love to have an email with everyone's addresses in it, email addresses.
Yeah.
So,
Just pop it
I was
into
gonna
the
say-
discussion, right?
Did we have
Yeah.
that?
What I want to do while I have all of you here is do keep checking Canvas for a little while, just because I'm going to post some things like recommendations for you guys, and as far as while we're working on the book, some things might pop up there. But I was also going to start a thread tonight that's just contact info for everybody, who wants it, just so it's all in one place. And if you have, email address, a phone number, social media, whatever, just go
Social
ahead.
Security.
Social Security, yeah.
I thought that's what you were saying.
A valid birth certificate, your passport.
Dilemmas. No, just kidding.
Dominic, you're going to need a visa.
Are you leaving, Diddy?
Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Don't be
David.
shy.
Thank you so much for everything.
Of
Thank you,
course, thank
David.
you all. Keep hanging. I don't want to interrupt it. I just got to jump.
Okay.
Thank you.
But yeah, I'll.
Jalex. I'm
What?
just saying that out loud. Who's Jalex? I have someone in my screen that says Jalex.
That's my Jalex, it says, right? That's my son and his partner.
Hello.
Oh, nice.
Hello.
Hello, son and daughter.
Let's see your
It's a
faces.
combo. It's a combo. Alex and Jax.
Oh, I love that.
Alex and Jax, you can come to the party.
Hello.
They know how to.
Hey.
Oh, so fun. We
Wait,
love
so
your
Alex,
mom.
you're the one that was in the Shetlands? Is that right?
Yes.
Oh my
Ah,
God.
so we
Oh my
learned lots about
God.
you.
Yep.
I feel like we're meeting a celebrity.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
There's
This is
a
our
real
newest family
celebrity.
member, DJ Rumba.
DJ
Very
Rumba.
cute.
Is that a Chihuahua?
Mm-hmm.
How'd you know that? I couldn't figure that out, Leslie.
Really? So cute.
It's really
Thank you all for sharing your stories with us
Yeah,
tonight.
thanks.
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for
You're welcome.
coming.
Wait, Carol, that's your son?
Yes, I'm afraid he's going to be a writer too.
No, Jalex, your mom's the bomb. We love her.
Yeah. She's great, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Jax and Alex. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Or
Carol.
folks or nerds. We decided to call it nerds and get rid of the
Yeah.
gender reference.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna go off camera.
Thank you.
All
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
I gotta run. I also gotta run. I gotta take my kids to violin and basketball, and I just realized the time. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Okay. We will all be in touch though.
sounds good.
yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, for reading, I just thought of something. Everyone had pretty remarkable suggestions on Zoom chats that I tried to capture, and I started sharing them. But maybe until you guys figure out the next version of this, which I assume is not going to be till January, we can, on that canvas, if it stays on, can just share something, a poetry reading, book that we read, or something that we came across that remind each other of each other. How's that for January?
That's nice.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, it's back to my
Yeah,
sharing
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, we're gonna just leave. I mean, with the other, I think all the classes that we've done, they're still up on Canvas. So yeah, just check back periodically. And I do agree with you, Dalika, that sometime before the end of this year, we should have like a cocktail party or something, just for the hell of it.
Just remember, your night is my day. So if you're starting me off early, like I have to plan accordingly. Okay.
The only choice is that we all have to go to Bangkok.
I love that idea.
I love that idea too.
And you're all more than welcome.
Thanks.
I have to say, because of the pandemic, and 17% of the GDP of Thailand is based on travel industry, you can imagine what it's like over here. It's awful.
Oh,
And they just got rid of the quarantine requirements. So
wow.
so you actually can come, but most of the world doesn't know that yet. So if you're coming, come soon is all I can say, because it's safe and it's not as busy as it usually is. And we'd have a totally great time. I can take you out to all my Bangkok speakeasies. There's lots of places here that are just unbelievable. The previous king wrote jazz. So there's a fond affection of jazz places here that I've never seen anywhere outside of New York. And
It is amazing.
yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, Andrew, you know this place, right? So you know the deal here.
I was, you know what though? You know what I never told you? You know when I was there during the coup.
Oh my God.
But that was fun. That was amazing. Because
We're gonna this whole thing's being recorded, and we're gonna stop that conversation right now. I am still here, my dear. I am still here.
It was fun because what the news here in the United States made it out to be was nothing like what the experience. It was like a party. That was pretty.
Say nothing. I'm like the monkeys that you see in all the temples.
But you know what? The best meal that I have ever had in my life was in Thailand, and it wasn't Thai food.
I know the non-Thai food here is remarkable. All the food here is remarkable, and with your exchange rate and your strong dollars, you can go much farther than you ever could. And they're tremendous deals in hotels. I'd invite you to stay at my house, but like, I don't
Andrew,
mind.
what were you
But
doing
if
when
you
you were
all
there?
turn up, forget it. You know?
I had a friend who was studying at Thammasat University in Bangkok, and I went to stay with, and they spoke Thai, and so I went to stay with them for a while. But it was amazing. But the best meal I ever had was Lebanese food in Bangkok. It was just a street vendor. I mean, I don't even know what I ate, but it was just, I mean, because you're just looking at food and saying that looks good and that looks good and that looks good, but it was just incredible. But
there's a street food festival every day here because that's just how people eat. It's not exceptional. It's not a time. Anyway, I gotta run. I love you all. Thank you for this again, Ginger and Andrew, and all of you. My God, my heart is full. And what a way to end just before Thanksgiving. So I'm so grateful for all of you.
Thank you.
Zoom drinks next.
Bye.
Ciao.
Well, and my husband just got home. He's been gone all weekend, and I haven't talked to him yet. Like, I'm zooming. Don't make any noise. Don't make the dogs bark.
All right.
But great to see you. Glad you're home. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good holiday.
You
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It was beautiful.
So
Well,
rich.
Thank you all.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Zoom hands. Oh.